All right, we're here as the Lost Rider Podcast. Good morning and welcome to this weekend's edition of News from the Camp House, listening post of the Texas Sportsmen Association. This is Herman Brune. This weekend's edition is also brought to us by Shaw's Bend Social Club, country club for folks who don't have a country club. All right, I tell you what, this weekend we're down here in Pearland, Texas. We are with State Representative Jeff Berry. All right, now the context for this morning's interview is we're going to visit with Representative Berry about the Sportsmen's Caucus. He is interested in rejuvenating the Sportsmen's Caucus in the Texas Legislature. It's been sort of dormant, and Representative Berry wants to fix that. So, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing great, Herman. Thanks for coming out today. So the Sportsmen's Caucus was something that was introduced to me, actually, by a group of individuals around the Capitol, and they thought that I might be a good person to kind of take that on, given the fact that I'm just an outdoorsman, and I love to hunt and fish and enjoy all the resources Texas has to offer on a regular basis, and they could tell that. And they thought that I'd be the right candidate, I guess, to take that on, and I did. And I look forward to continuing the work there. We did a lot of work this past session, the interim, really, rewriting bylaws and creating a group or a team of individuals to do fundraising and stuff like that. So it's been a great opportunity for me, anyway, to get to know people around the Capitol. But more importantly, do something I love doing is getting outdoors in Texas.
Okay. How long have you been a state rep?
2 years, first session.
Okay, so you've been there for one session. All right. So now you're meeting people, you're finding out. Okay, when you were presented with this idea, can you define it a little bit better? What are we going to do? What's going to be the purpose? What kind of bills are we going to be looking at?
Well, not really sure about bills right now, but one idea that I've been presented with was allowing students that are actually in a university setting in Texas to pay in-state licensing fees versus out-of-state licensing fees. If they live in Louisiana, say, or Oklahoma, and they're going to school in Texas, they should be able to pay in-state licensing fees so that they can enjoy the outdoors too. When you're younger, it's cost prohibitive for individuals to pay $300 because that's what a license costs in Texas, to an out-of-state license anyway. It's about $300 to come and hunt in Texas. So we want to make it a little bit more accessible for those individuals and to be able to get outdoors and do the things that we all enjoy.
All right. Well, yeah, no, that's all good. It's get young, be able to take your buddy. If you got a buddy from Louisiana and you're going to A&M and y'all want to go down fishing at the coast, yeah, make it a little easier for him. Yeah, no, that all makes sense. Okay, one of the points of the things that we do here, this has always been advertised, or this has always been presented as an outdoor program, but we talk about anything and everything, and you give me 2 minutes and I can relate any topic you want to the outdoors. Yeah. So from that perspective, when you're talking about a sportsman's caucus, again, you can, any of the bills that are going to come up, you give me a minute, I'm going to relate them to the outdoors.
You could very well do that. Anything from environmental issues. I mean, we talked earlier about orphan wells and things of that sort. It directly affects our outdoor activities, things of that sort. So if we're going to go down to the coast fishing, we have industry along the Gulf Coast in the state of Texas. those industries are going to affect estuaries associated with fishing and hunting, whether it's waterfowl, goose, whatever it might be, and fishing for trout, flounder, redfish, whatever those things are. So yeah, we can certainly address, there's a lot of overlap there, I would say, between the outdoors and a lot of the business and industry things that we have going on in Texas, and a lot of the bills that we do ultimately work on. Yeah.
All right. So, okay, when we do that, now let's get into the bigger scale of things. And everybody sets their hair on fire for one reason or another. And you sit around, you look at it, you just wonder, well, I wonder how this is all going to turn out. It was interesting the other week. I talked to Groundwater Conservation District Manager, and one of his point of views was, okay, right now data centers are a big thing. Everybody's setting their hair on fire. Stop all the data centers. Yeah. And a question that he had was, okay, how many of these people are going to volunteer to give up their cell phones? And I'm probably the only one that raised his hand. But I mean, so there's a balance there that we have to look for.
No, you're absolutely right, and it goes further than cell phones, right? If you have a Gmail account, if you have a Yahoo account, an AT&T account, if you use Outlook or Office 365, if you use Facebook, which a lot of people like to criticize me on, but they're using the very tool from a data center to address some of the things that I put out there on social media. So there's no question to me whether or not data centers are needed. It's a matter of, can we work with the data centers from a county perspective? Because they're not coming to your cities near you. They're not coming to the Pearland, Texases, or the Alvins, or Manvilles, or Iowa Colonies, or Liverpool, or Richwood. They're not coming into those areas. They don't want to be there. They want to be They want to be discreet. They want to be out in the county. In fact, there was an organization, I believe, that just bought some property in Brazoria County, over 400 acres. And so they've bought 400 acres to build a facility on, potentially. They want to be out in the county doing their thing. But when we have such a need, we've addressed the need, right? So we understand whether it's a cell phone or computer or emails or whatever, we all use them in some way, shape, or form. In your day-to-day life, you touch a data center in some way, shape, or form. But more importantly, though, it's a national security issue. This is critical infrastructure that drives national security, because if not for Texas driving this issue or being able to say, hey, look, let Texas deal with this. We can actually house these data centers, and we have a lot of rural landscape out in Texas that doesn't necessarily affect, individuals or families or communities. And we can utilize that land to our advantage. And in fact, some of these smaller counties or less populated counties, these data centers have sparked new life into those communities because of the property taxes that they pay. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying that data centers are good, for everyone, because they're not from a location standpoint. But day to day, you and I touch them every single day. When your podcast goes on live, it's going to be housed in a data center, I'm sure, somewhere, in some way, some shape, somehow. Mm-hmm. And we just need to make sure that we work with the coalition to see or to make sure that they want to be good neighbors, right? So if you have an issue with light emitting from the data center, work with them. Work with them before they're coming to start construction. Say, listen, we understand that we're out in the country. We don't like to see a large amount of light in the evening sky. We want to see the stars at night. Work with them to put in low dimming lights or turn their lights off at a certain time, so you can still enjoy the stars in Texas. So we can work with them, and there's a lot of other issues, right? We have water issues, or people perceive to have water issues, but data centers are just like anything else. Their technology evolves. Back in the day, they were using a large amount of water, but today, water's expensive, even to data center operators. So they have new closed loop systems. Closed loop systems circulate water, and it doesn't have to be necessarily treated water. It could just be groundwater or surface water that they purchase from one of our other organizations like LCRA or Gulf Coast Water Authority or whomever, wherever they get their water in that area. But we have the water issue in updating their technology and using closed loop systems so they don't use near the water that they used to use. Mm-hmm. We have electrical grid power. In fact, I had about an hour-long call with ERCOT last week about this very topic. We have way more capacity on the grid that we can call up than anything that we have attached to the grid at this very time. So on the hottest of days in Texas, the most we're going to use on any given day is about 104 gigawatts of power. And we have the ability to call up over 300. So we have the bandwidth from a power standpoint. The trick is, though, when we connect that plug of that data center or whatever business it is, it doesn't have to be a data center. It could be anything utilizing over 75 megawatts of power. Mm-hmm. If we plug that joker into the grid and it trips a breaker, that's a problem. So back to the drawing board you go. Not going to be acceptable on the grid because you're going to affect too many people, whether it be residents or businesses. So those things are just not going to be acceptable to ERCOT. They're not going to gain the approval if they can't attach to the grid through the proper transmission properties and the way they do it today. They're just not going to be allowed onto the grid. So it's not a power resource issue. It's a power transmission issue when new businesses or data centers or whatever they might be try to connect to the grid. So those are the two big topics when it comes to data centers. And so the state of Texas has embraced data centers, and we have over 300 of them in Texas right now as we sit here. I don't know how many more are planned, but there are more coming.
You just said there's already 300 in the state?
Yeah, 300.
Okay, one of the other, we're worried about water, we're worried about electricity. What about taking up, ag land?
So the biggest challenge I have is that's one of the big heartburns I have when you start having large systems, purchase large swaths of property. In the area that we just talked about, right, it's going to be out in the county, and that property would otherwise be an ag, whether it be cattle or some sort of farming process. Mm-hmm. Me personally, being an outdoors person, I don't necessarily like it, but I have to weigh the justification for the data center as compared to the ag land that we possibly lose, but more importantly, what about that farmer? What about that owner? Why is that owner actually sitting at the table with this organization saying, I'm having a hard time. I'm having a hard time paying my taxes. I can't raise enough animals on this property. I can't take care of enough animals. My family doesn't want to take over the farm. So a lot of times you find a situation where it's just their natural alternative to sell the property. Mm-hmm. And those individuals are going to go out and get the most money they can for their property, and they deserve to do it. But I don't like to see ag land taken up by large swaths of data centers or solar panels or windmills. I just don't like it personally. But I understand the need that property owners and we're talking about property rights here. Mm-hmm. And, these property owners have property rights, and we value those property rights in the state of Texas. So they have every right to do it. Now, their neighbors are going to be really mad at them when they do it. But unfortunately, that's the state we're in now.
All right. I'll tell you what, let's take a quick break and thank folks who let us come on here every Saturday morning. We'll be right back.